Cameron Cano with Lootpress. We are here on the line with Slava Tolstoy of International String Trio.
Hey, Cameron, how are you?
Doing well. Thanks so much for taking the time. You're set to play here in Beckley. It's part of Beckley Concert Association's 2024-2025 concert series. I, for one, am incredibly excited. Elite-level musicianship from literally around the world. Have you all performed here in West Virginia previously or visited, or will this be your first time out this way?
You know what? Frankly, I don't remember. We played all around the U.S., that much I know, and we definitely did something in Virginia. I'm pretty sure we played in West Virginia before, but sometimes we used to be on tour for like month and a half at a time, and literally going from town to town, and sometimes from state to state, from one day to another, and it just kind of. I can't, be 100% certain, but there was a high chance we did play in West Virginia. But we're definitely very much looking forward to coming to your town and playing most amazing and exciting show we can do for you. Okay.
Sure, I appreciate the candor. I imagine it all starts to blend together after a while on the road.
In some ways, we're just kind of like, again, like I was just looking at one of our schedules. We toured Midwest a lot, for example, and then we also toured Montana of all states and Northwest a lot at some point. And I looked at our schedule from like 7-8 years ago, and there were like 20 dates, and we went through like 15 states, all of the Dakotas and, Minnesota's and Illinois, etc. And it's just all kind of wow. That's a lot of states we did. I don't really recall any specific one date or one state, but it was definitely exciting. So it's probably some same happened with this corner of the woods, so to speak.
Right. Does the geography of the venues you're playing have any effect on the set list? Like if you're playing a jazz club, are you going to lean a little more into like Django Reinhardt, or here at Beckley, maybe we'll hear some parts of your Appalachia album, or is it just sort of show to show?
Yeah, that's a very good question. We have pretty wide repertoire, as you already guessed, and probably it looks like you did your homework. You checked out what we play, what we sound like, and mentioned a few of our big influences, like whole Appalachian kind of folk bluegrassy part of things, and then of course Django Reinhardt and gypsy jazz. So we're trying to tailor things to based on the specific region and specific type of venue or concert. But then at the same time, there is also certain kind of core set of tunes that are literally the signature songs of our group that we do kind of almost need to play them, because that's what sets the tone, that's what makes people hopefully like us, So that is also there. But of course, we're trying to be flexible and surprise our audience and ourselves, which is also important to keep it fresh,
Sure. And you are correct. I did a little digging. I love the variety of your repertoire. You have things like concerto in D minor and air on a G string, but you're also doing like Beatles tunes and Devil Went Down to Georgia. It puts me in mind sort of how you'll have like Miles Davis doing Blue Monk or something, but also there's like Bill Evans and Toots Thielemans doing Paul Simon and stuff. Some musicians, especially formerly trained musicians, sort of shy away from quote-unquote pop music, but one might argue there's a lot of harmonic structure in there worth exploring. Was there any reluctance or hesitant on the part of you guys in like doing more pop-oriented tunes, or was that always part of the plan?
That's actually a very good question, and I like the direction that you're going, just from the list of names that you threw in there. We're actually having a nice, intelligent, high-level conversation, so that doesn't always happen, so I appreciate that.
Oh, I'd love to hear that. Thank you.
Again, coming back to your question, there is, music can be good or not good, as a very funny and wise man said in Sopranos series. It was, of course, in a kind of funny context, but I actually still believe that's true. And that's basically our motto. And when it comes to pop music, there is a lot of crappy pop music out there that we are
Sure.
literally trying to stay away from. So we are very sensitive in terms of what tunes we pick, and invest our time into arranging and presenting to our audiences and recording, etc., etc. But then at the same time, there are some absolutely stunning, amazing examples of pop music that just kind of cross any kind of stylistic boundaries or limitations. And at some point, any great piece of music, regardless if it's pop, jazz, or classical, becomes just literally that, a great piece of music. And that's what we like to work with and arrange and make part of our repertoire. So in that sense, no, we don't have any hesitation of sort to take a tune from pop repertoire. But then again, it better be a good one. So we're sensitive. We're very, very picky and very careful. We're not gonna, I don't know, take like Lady Gaga or Coldplay and play it on a major stage. I mean, we might do it. We might bang it out in some fun context just for fun, but it's not necessarily our favorite type of music. But, if it's a beautiful tune by Paul Simon, who we love and respect, or Stevie Wonder, or Sting, or Beatles, who I believe are just amazing composers, period. Mm-hmm. Regardless of style, they're great composers, nothing less than Bach or Beethoven were, then no, we don't have any problem working on those tunes.
Beautifully said. A lot of the tunes, if not all of the tunes, are interpretations. Is there any original material, or is it just interpretations of existing songs?
Another good question. We do have some original tunes that we play instrumentally, because all of the people in the groups are accomplished composers, as a matter of fact.
Right.
The thing is, with this project, it kind of started as exploring and trying out unexpected and cool, fresh arrangements of good material that isn't necessarily written by us, that so-called cover tunes. So that kind of has been the theme of International String Trio. However, as we live and grow and hopefully progress and develop as humans and musicians, of course, other things kind of come into our radar. So we did record it and performed and still are performing some original tunes of both, that I wrote and our violinist wrote. His name is Rob Flax, and he's amazing. That's one thing. So I'm talking about instrumental material. And then, as a matter of fact, these days we do a lot of shows with original songs where we sing. I sing in my native language, which is Russian, and Rob sings in English, and it's really awesome music. So we literally, at this point, overall, between this combination of individuals, which are three people, we have three completely different programs. So one is along the lines of International String Trio, instrumentals, covers with some originals, and then whole set of music with my original songs in Russian, and whole set of music with original songs of Rob in English. And not surprisingly, sometimes some of these worlds collide, so to speak. So, we might throw in a cool, pretty tune in Russian among our instrumental set, or a fun song by Rob in English, again, among our instrumental set. So you guys are up for surprises, and we'll make sure to keep it fresh and keep you on your toes, okay?
Very excited to see how that pans out. And you guys sort of seem to straddle the line, or a line, between jazz and like Western European or like classical music. As far as arrangements or existing arrangements, is there a lot of improvisation, or is it fairly structured? Is it true to the original, or is there room to kind of mess around, a little bit of both?
Well, it's, we call it freedom within structure.
Right.
Same as, frankly, a majority of real touring, performing concert groups, not just like a pickup jazz band at the bar.
Right.
Those guys just open up real books and kind of, jerk all over the jazz standards, so to speak, with all due respect. Depending on everybody's level, it might be more exciting and better or not so good, but that is, a pure kind of pure going into unknown territory, so to speak, and that's why often doesn't sound that good, frankly. But again, we have a lot of arrangements and structures and kind of understanding of general dynamic curve of songs in place, and that's what we're always aiming for. So even regardless if we play a jazz standard or tango or a bluegrass tune, we're always trying to create exciting dynamic curves. So there are like these rise and falls, specifically typical to classical music, first and foremost, but also to any good music yet again. If you get another point where all of the great performances and artists, they have in common and great live shows. If you're at a great pop concert, there's gonna be a lot of dynamic changes and very energetic tunes and very intimate things and everything in between. So we're kind of going for the same vibe, and the only way to do it is to have set of arrangements and just playing together a lot. But then that is in place within those general kind of guidelines. Of course, there is a lot of improvising, and actually, we play solos. Nobody knows what you're gonna do in your solo on a specific song, but when that solo is gonna happen, when it's over, how to pass it on and to who pass it on, and how to start and end the song in a very cohesive way. So that is definitely in place. So here it is, freedom within structure.
Right, like controlled chaos a little bit.
In a way, yes, that's not a bad way of putting it.
With the International String Trio, with the International String Trio, obviously the name implies the three members, and you've spoken before about the practicality of sort of eschewing a drummer. And as a drummer myself, I can confirm it's no fun loading and unloading drum kits from gig to gig.
Mm-hmm.
Was it an active decision on the part of the group to just avoid the drummer altogether? I suppose a lot of that responsibility as timekeeper would fall to the bass player now. And how does that affect the dynamic? Can you do different? I suppose you could do different things than a group locked down to a set drum rhythm or what have you.
Well, another good question. I mean, it developed naturally a long time ago in the group. We were jamming. I am a guitarist. I had an awesome jazz violinist friend, and then the bass player joined, and that's kind of how the project started. And of course, we did play and do play sometimes with drums, but apart from practical aspect, that it's just less noise and less instruments and less things to load in and out of the car, there is also an element of having this kind of freshness to the sound and the setup, because it's one of those cases when what appears as limitation can also become kind of your unique feature about your ensemble, kind of your shtick, so to speak. So yes, we don't have a drummer or percussionist, but it is pretty much on the shoulders of every member of the group to be very rhythmic, very percussive, and to carry on the time and groove without having drums, which is actually difficult, but it's also really fun if you can execute it, which we striving to do, and we believe we do okay with that, and that's kind of part of our unique sound, that you get a lot of energy and rhythm and just drive without having the actual loud, but a boom, bang, bam on drums,
right. So the standard instrumental lineup you're working with the trio, I believe, is guitar, violin, and bass, right?
Mm-hmm, correct.
Yeah. I know at least one album includes quite a bit of accordion as depicted on the front cover. As far as recording, are there any self-imposed restrictions in that way? Can there only be 3 instruments going at once, or are you multi-tracking?
It's you're getting into you're trying to get behind the curtains,
getting in the weeds of it all.
which is perfect. Again, I like talking about, I'm a musician, and I can feel you or anybody, any tricks of the trade, so to speak. So the project with accordion, kind of became like a little offspring of our main trio, because at some point we had several agencies who were kind of fighting with each other to have us as part of their roster, and we just couldn't be on all of these agencies' websites. So we knew this amazing accordionists, so we said, why wouldn't we venture out into new little direction and create another project that is our trio plus accordion? So at some point we were on two different agencies, lists, and they would be selling these two projects, one as a trio and one as a quartet, which worked out really well because we were touring a lot, playing great venues, and musically it is also awesome. Accordion is one of the rare instruments, if it's a good accordion player, of course, that blends very naturally with our group. So one reason why we don't play with drums or piano, even though we love those instruments, is because both of them take a lot of space. They create a lot of noise. They're very present. And that is just something that can be a blessing and a curse, and accordion is a awesome instrument because it can also play accompaniment. In other words, play chords. It can play rhythm. It can support the group, but it can also solo and lead very beautifully. And then just sonically and dynamically, it fits into the existing trio's kind of sonic landscape very naturally. So that's how that project came together, and we still do from time to time shows and jobs with accordion. As for recording process, there is not one way of, cooking eggs, so to speak.
Right.
And we use all kind of techniques and approaches. Of course, the ideal way is just to go into the studio and play live, beautiful music, just like we do on stage. And that's our preferred way of doing it. But then if we need to overdub something or punch in or edit or re-record one of the instruments, we're totally okay with doing it, because just same as pretty much anybody else out there, because
Sure.
Nowadays you just want to, when it's recording, you want it to sound beautiful by any means necessary. And of course, we are not a pop act, so there's not going to be millions of takes and chopping phrases word by word or note by note. None of that, stupid things we do. But yeah, if we need to use the advantages of modern technology, we absolutely do that, and that's why I believe our records and videos, they sound nice, because a lot of work and thought went into it. It's not an accident, In general, when something sounds nice and works, it's not an accident. There was a lot of very hard, long work behind it. So.
Right. Fascinating. I had erroneously assumed that it was one of you also doing the accordion, but I believe Rob has also done a lot of vocal work, and in my own experience, I know a lot of these skills are transferable, particularly with string instruments. Are all of you multi-instrumentalists? And is that incorporated very much into the work with the trio, or is that sort of off on its own thing?
It's a good question. Most of good musicians play more than one instrument. So I can just tell you what each one of us plays. My main instrument is obviously guitar. I sing a good amount. I usually sing my original material. And that's what I tour with actually a lot of these days, apart from international string trio. So I also play and teach piano and use it as my kind of, instrument for composing and understanding music and finding cool ways to songs and sounds. So these are my main instruments. And I also play electric bass as an additional thing, which is kind of neighbor instrument of guitar in a way, but it's its own species. So that's my spectrum of instruments. Rob is a real multi-instrumentalist, because he does play violin. That's his main instrument, but he's also an accomplished mandolin player. He plays upright bass. He plays all kind of toys. He plays guitar pretty well. He plays all kind of percussive toys, string guitars. He's one of those kind of crazy scientist type of guys. And he's also big into sound processing and all kind of effects and pedals. So that's another. So he's my guy to go to when it comes to, looking for specific cool sound or processing approach to either one of my guitars. So I go to my violinist and we select the right pedal with him. So it's pretty fascinating when you think about it. And of course, he's a great, amazing vocalist in his own right. And our bass player, James, he plays obviously both electric and acoustic basses. He plays, works with piano and, a few other things. He sings some back vocals sometimes, but that's kind of where we're at. And that's a lot of stuff. And in our show at Beckley, we will try to feature Rob on mandolin at least, if it will feel right and natural, because that's kind of, so he's going to play mainly violin and some mandolin. And we will make sure to throw in a couple of songs, just to, again, change that instrumental kind of wave of sound, so to speak, because that usually is just a nice feature as part of our regular set.
Awesome. Well, I've got one more and we will get on out of here. From what I can tell, one doesn't arrive at the level of musicality of musicians like yourselves or a John Coltrane or Bill Evans or even like a Paul McCartney. You don't arrive at that level by looking at music as a 9 to 5. It's a sort of constant, not just a means to an end, like a motor that's essentially always running. As such, I assume you've all logged thousands of hours internalizing some of like the most complex and revered music ever. But in terms of recreational listening, are there any artists or styles that you enjoy that might surprise some people?
Another good question, and you're absolutely right that, music is not a 9 to 5 type of occupation, even though you do need to put in a lot of routine hours and daily efforts into all aspects of it, especially when it comes to being a professional musician. And often you do not necessarily things that have directly to do with art or creating things or practicing your instrument, but simply, doing the business work and giving interviews like I'm giving to you right now, etc., etc. So that's part of the deal, and that's what enables you to actually get to the artistic part. But yes, of course, internalizing things, spending a lot of time with it. So we did put our 10,000s of hours into our instruments, for sure. You can count on that. And then when it comes to listening to music, that is frankly absolutely important and essential part of being inspiring and inspired. I often think about it, how important it is to keep that inspiration and excitement alive, and discovering new names or listening to things that you already know and rediscovering things and being inspired. Like, big part of what any talented musician does is just being really moved by somebody.
It's a child. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's a childlike wonder almost.
Yeah. So you hear something and it just moves you so much. You're so inspired that you want to try and do it yourself.
Right.
And that's it's a big part of it. It sounds very simple, but that's what I keep telling my students and people I get in touch with, that being inspired by other artists is almost as important as, being one yourself and creating good things. They actually literally go hand in hand. But if we're talking about specific names, somebody who I am constantly inspired by, and you might not have heard of, few names come to mind, but I'll throw it out there. One of them is Birelli Lagraine, who is, I believe, is the greatest guitarist in the world, in my opinion. He is most known for his work in gypsy jazz, kind of contemporary, etc. He's a French gypsy, and he's been on the scene for probably last 50 plus years, even though he's only 58 now, because he was a child prodigy, and you can find his videos when he's 5 and 7 and 10 years old, and he plays almost as amazing and as technically killing as he does later. So something to be, again, his name is Birelli Lagraine, and he recorded an album with Jaco Pastorius when he was I think 15 or something. He was one of those miracles of nature, and still is, and he's amazing gypsy jazz guitarist, so a lot of our gypsy jazz sound is inspired by him, his energy, his humor, his level of musicality. He's one of the most musical people I can literally think of, and he's just constant inspiration and drive for us. And another performer who I personally love and am inspired by, his name is Jan Garbarek, and it's a Norwegian saxophone player, not as known in the States as in Europe, even though he had his huge moments he did at the beginning of his career. He recorded a couple of albums with Keith Jarrett, who is obviously very well known, one of the most famous jazz pianists ever. So his albums with Keith Jarrett are absolutely stunning. And then he went on to have, again, absolutely inspiring and diverse career. And his sound and his whole vibe is has a lot of world music influences. He collaborates with different ensembles, choirs, performers from literally all around the globe, and also his own just kind of vibe and music they really speak to me personally. It's very, there is an element of this kind of Nordic Scandinavian vibe, kind of cold, but also really deep and sometimes very simple. He's not afraid of using simple melodies and harmonies, but then sometimes it's very complex, and the list goes on and on. So he's just really absolutely unique performer in the world, and very famous everywhere, and including the U.S., but he just doesn't actually come to U.S. as much as he used to. So these are some names that come to mind just from the top of my head.
I will definitely have to seek some of that out. And I will let you go and start preparing for tour. But this has been amazing. Thanks so much for taking time to talk music with us. We're so excited to see you guys here in Beckley playing with the trio.
Absolutely, sounds good. Thank you for conducting and arranging this interview, and in whatever shape it's gonna come out. I know if it's gonna be printed or just online. Just send me like the links or email. I'll gladly share it, and anything you want us to do to help promoting it, we're up for it. It's gonna be a really great show, I know so, and it would be really great to have some good amount of people in the audience. Always helps.
Absolutely, and thanks so much again, and best of luck to you all.
All right, thank you, Cameron. Nice talking to you.
You as well.